And joining us now from Los Angeles, NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Kristen, you had a one-on-one chat with Bernie Sanders yesterday. What did he tell you?
Well, good morning, Willie. Bernie Sanders is not backing down. In fact, he told me he feels confident about his chances here in must-win California. And he insisted this prolonged Democratic race is good for democracy. And he resisted any suggestion that he could be wounding Hillary Clinton in a general election. Bernie Sanders rallying a crowd of more than 6,700 people in Santa Monica Monday night.
Show the world you're ready for a political revolution.
After our fiery one-on-one interview.
We don't live, thank God, in an authoritarian country. People dissent.
Sanders, who just struck a deal with the DNC to play a major role in shaping the party's platform, weighed in on a report that he's predicting the convention could be messy.
The media often takes words out of context. The context of that was that democracy is messy, that people will have vigorous debate on the issues.
Will the convention be messy?
Well, of course it will be. But everything, that's what democracy is about.
And Sanders balked at any suggestion he might be hurting Hillary Clinton's chances against Donald Trump, even as polls show her lead against the Republican slipping. When you look at those numbers, how can you argue that this primary battle is not in some ways hurting her in a general election and hurting those numbers?
Well, I guess if we take your assumption and Clinton supporters' assumption to the logical conclusion, you know what we should do? We should go back to a monarchy and not have any elections at all.
And what if Sanders doesn't win? Would you pledge to Democrats that you're going to campaign for Secretary Clinton?
First of all, my focus right now is to win the Democratic nomination.
But will
at the end
you
of the
campaign?
day, excuse me, at the end of the day, we hope to win a majority of the pledged delegates.
Insisting he still has a path to victory, Sanders also took a swipe at Clinton for refusing to debate him in California.
She is really insulting the people of the largest state in our country, who have a right to hear a vigorous debate on her views. So I am disappointed, although not surprised.
And Sanders sidestepped a question about party loyalty. Do you feel a sense of loyalty to the Democratic Party? What would you say to Democrats who have that?
I have a very strong sense that Donald Trump would be a disaster if he were elected president of the United States.
Now, as for that debate, the Clinton campaign says they declined the offer because they wanted to focus on campaigning here in California and wanted to focus on the general election. Willie, in the coming days, you can expect both of the candidates to be barnstorming right here in California. Sanders telling me he expects to rally as many as 200,000 people before the June 7th primary.
And the Sanders campaign would argue part of getting the word out would be having a debate in California.
Indeed.
NBC's Kristen Welker in L.A. Thanks, Kristen. Joining us now, author and columnist for the New York Daily News, now an MSNBC contributor, Mr. Mike Lupica, and up on Capitol Hill, attorney and Republican strategist Ben Ginsberg. Mike, this is the part of the show where I read a part of your column and then you talk more about it. Should we do that?
Okay, at your own risk.
Okay. All right. Lupica writes, Bernie Sanders acts as if he's beating Clinton like a drum, even though she's gotten 2.9 million more votes than he has. No matter. He, Bernie, is the only one the voters love, truly. Only his vision of America counts. So he will stay in this race until the middle of June, sticking to his story that he's not hurting Clinton or hurting her chances against Trump by doing that, which happens to be thinking made out of moonbeams. Sanders stays in the race because his own rhetoric has become a narcotic for him, because he really has convinced himself he's the face and voice of a revolution. And if you're running a revolution, it's a little difficult to head back to the Green Mountains. So, Mike, you're suggesting this is one big ego trip. He says it's about all the people, the millions of people who are supporting him and believe in his message.
Willie, nobody without ego gets into this game. It's a hardball league, and you have to wear a helmet. But he, more than anybody, sometimes I feel I'm not nearly virtuous enough to talk about Bernie Sanders, because no,
I'm definitely not.
Totally. You said the same things. Don't you get the idea that he is so far above this? And this has been a political season where, you know the old line, you don't want to see how the sausage is made. Every single day of this campaign, we have seen that. And the idea that he's not hurt, I know Hillary Clinton can be her own worst enemy,
right.
Okay? And her most dangerous opponent is probably herself. But every day he stays in this, the idea that he's not hurting her is ridiculous.
I agree with you, but I want to know why he keeps telegraphing this message to his voters, why he's part of the delusion. I mean, he is losing. He has lost. He's been mathematically eliminated since mid-March. But he wants to, defy math? What is sort of the string that ties reality to what he's saying? Is he lying to his supporters?
I don't know if he's lying to him, but Willie, another wonderful line from the column. He acts like the scoreboard doesn't matter. When you're coaching your kids and the other team's trash-talking them, you only have them finally say, scoreboard. And he acts like the scoreboard doesn't matter. The other thing that he acts like, to me, is that only his demographics are the ones that matter. Only his supporters are the ones who really will count in this election, and it's a preposterous, to me, it's a preposterous notion.
I remember Howard Dean at the beginning of this race saying, Bernie Sanders, who knows him of course from Vermont, saying, Bernie Sanders is very good at playing the victim. He does it really well, and he's done it throughout his political career. And at the moment, he and his supporters feel they are a victim of a rigged system, and he's out to prove
But Katie,
Heilman's sighing. Heilman, why are you sighing?
So I was like, get out.
Guys, Hillary Clinton in 2008 campaigned until the very last primary day. On the night of the last primary, she stood in New York City with Terry McAuliffe on stage, and she's called her the next president of the United States. Half of her campaign was telling her she should go all the way to Denver and fight at a contested convention in Denver. And then she thought about it, and the next day she went to her campaign headquarters and dropped out. And then a few days later endorsed Barack Obama and then went to the convention. The only question is not why is Bernie Sanders fighting till the end. He has every right to fight till the end. And she criticized Obama all the way till the end, even though people now claim she didn't. The question is what happens on June 8th. And I don't actually care what Jeff Weaver says or what Bernie Sanders says or anybody else says or telegraphs. On the day after the last contest, let's check in with Bernie Sanders and see how he behaves. Until then, he's perfectly within his rights to continue to campaign hard, to go to California, to fight to the end. And then, let's see what happens. Does he unify the party or not? People who are worried about Democratic unity only need to look back to 2008, where, as you will remember well, Nicole, because of the fight that was going on, Barack Obama came out of the nominating season 6 points behind John McCain. And then Hillary Clinton turned, blessed him, and the Democratic Party came together. Let's see what happens.
Let's get Ben Ginsburg on this. Ben, you know, obviously...
He doesn't have a right.
Well, he does. Well, you just did.
No,
He has a right.
No, nobody said he doesn't have a right to.
win.
I didn't say he didn't have a right.
But there are consequences. I'm with you. He has a right, but the notion that he isn't doing her harm is what's...
But many people are now saying he should get out, he must get out, what he's doing is bad. And I'm not saying he doesn't have a right. Obviously, you're not saying he doesn't have a right, but I'm just trying to say, like, I think there's a little bit of overdrawn kind of melodramatic panic about exactly how permanent this damage is and how much he's killing her and maybe costing her the election. It's like, guys, we've been through this before. What happened 8 years ago? The question is what happens next, not what's happened up to this point.
The other thing we went through before is that actually all of those Hillary Clinton supporters who said that they would never vote for Bernie Sanders for Barack Obama come November, they sure did.
Ben?
Well, you know, in a little noted development yesterday, the DNC helped Bernie Sanders unleash the furies. The 5 people he got to appoint to the DNC's platform committee are not people who are known for compromising their views. And so in trying to bring Bernie Sanders into the fold, they have now unleashed some people who may not play along with that nice game of bringing the party together.
Ben,
like
for people watching at home, what is the impact? What's the significance of getting 5 people of Bernie Sanders choosing on the party platform? What does that mean at the convention?
Well, it was part of the compromise to try and bring him in. What it means is on the platform committee, where goodness knows Bernie Sanders has been driving Hillary Clinton to the left the whole campaign, he has some very articulate, very knowledgeable supporters of his who are going to drive those policies that will make it harder for her to get back to the center in what's going to end up being a platform debate that could, like it did 4 years ago in Charlotte, spill over onto the floor.
Mike, isn't everybody going to come together at that convention? Isn't it all going to be fine and they're going to get behind Hillary Clinton if she is in fact the nominee? Bernie Sanders will push his voters in her direction. How does this end for the Democratic Party?
In what has been a post-factual campaign where facts have taken a bigger beating than any candidate, it's how do you unring all these bells? I know it's happened before and it will happen again in politics. How do you unsay all the things that have been said in this campaign?
Well, it's happened on the Republican side. A lot of people who said horrific things about Donald Trump are now supporting him, endorsing him, raising money for him. A lot of them are.
Many.
The Democrats will try and unring the bell by the choice of the vice presidential candidate, which puts a lot of pressure on Hillary Clinton to choose someone who calms the Bernie Sanders people. If she fails to do that, then you get into all sorts of interesting situations on the floor.
I think it helps Hillary Clinton on that. Has she shifted too far to the left, and does she need to center herself? It helps her that she's running against somebody who actually, on a slew of economic policies, is probably on the same page, if not slightly to her left, when it comes to issues like trade, when it comes to taxes on the wealthy, when it comes to protecting Social Security and Medicare. Donald Trump is not a traditional conservative, so she's got much more wiggle room.
I think the difference between 2008 and Hillary coalescing behind Obama is that Hillary supporters and Obama supporters believe the same things. I think the difference is that Bernie Sanders supporters are more animated by the sorts of things that animate the Trump supporters, railing against a rigged economy, railing against a rigged political establishment. And I think that the damage he's doing to her is that those voters may never come back to an establishment politician.
It is the question, and again, so much matters about what happens between June 8th and the end of July, right? So they're both going to have responsibilities to each other, right? Obama and Clinton conducted themselves in a remarkably kind of subtle and calculating way to bring the party together. They both played their part in that. Obama extended the olive branch.
For the same policy.
So the question then becomes, how does Sanders treat those supporters? I agree with you about this one element, which is that there was never a critique that Obama and Clinton offered of each other that they were fundamentally like corrupt.
Right.
And Sanders has suggested that, at least about Clinton, even though he hasn't quite said it. So it will be a harder thing in this case, but not undoable. Again, to point to Willie's thing, a lot of bells can be unrung, it turns out, as the Trump experience shows.
See what you started here, Mike Lupica? Great column. Another one from Mike Lupica. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Willie.
Ben Ginsburg, thank you to you as well. Coming up, another Virginia governor under investigation. This time it's Democrat Terry McAuliffe, who also happens to be very close to Bill and Hillary Clinton. Why the FBI is looking into his 2013 campaign next on Morning Joe.